New clues tonight that whatever Bob Mueller has found, he could hand off his report soon. Donald Trump saying this afternoon his new AG will decide what happens to any Mueller report. And journalists have been tracking the clues that Mueller's grand jury could be winding down. News coming as the DOJ announces a replacement for Mueller's old boss this week, Rod Rosenstein. He says he'll leave DOJ entirely by next month, and that matters because he suggested Mueller's report would be filed before he, Rod Rosenstein, departs. Now, no one knows what Mueller will find or release, but we do know the rules that govern Mueller say that he must, quote, explain all of his prosecution or declination decisions. The prosecution part is simple because we already know who Mueller's prosecuted in public. Now, declination, that means people that he did investigate but chose not to prosecute. And so that obviously has many people asking, well, how could that apply to a president? No prosecutor has ever tried to indict a sitting U.S. president, making that scenario more familiar as fiction than as news, like when 24 showed a fictional Secret Service arresting the fictional president they were once protecting.
Mr. Clark, arrest these men and get them the hell out of here.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. We have our orders.
You take your orders from me.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, depending on what era you're in, that might be more or less exciting. But why, legally, is considering that more fantasy than reality? Well, as everyone waits the Mueller report tonight, it is worth getting into the answer. The Constitution does not say this explicitly, but many scholars believe it suggests against indicting a sitting president. And the DOJ has reinforced that view by also formally advising against it. And that doesn't mean it's legally impossible, but it does set the bar, basically, about as high as it gets without formally banning the indictment of a sitting president. So here are both reasons. The Founding Fathers did consider the idea of presidential crimes, of course, and they created a way for the Congress to remove the president from office for high crimes or misdemeanors. Now, there's wide debate over what is a high crime, but the Constitution's core remedy there is, of course, Congress, not the prosecutors in the president's own executive branch, to deal with any such alleged high crime and then potentially remove a president over it. Now, does that mean people are immune from prosecution because they serve as president? No. And this is important. The theory is about the order of operations, not that these people, because they're president, are above the law forever. But it holds that a president would first have to be removed from office and then charged later. Consider the debate from the time of the founding. George Mason, who didn't actually sign the Constitution, argued that the president's pardon power was too broad, saying the president ought not to have the power of pardoning because he may frequently pardon crimes which were advised, yes, by himself. But James Madison rejected that, saying, look, there's the security of the House which can impeach him. And here's why I'm showing you that ancient history tonight as everyone waits for Mueller to do something. The exchange does suggest that the founders, when they presumed there could be a crime-committing president, they also presumed the first response was impeachment to that. So it may sound unjust to have presidents who would face no prosecution for crimes while in office. You can think about the examples that support this theory. Take a hypothetical. A president trespasses on someone's private property. Really did it. Busted, on video, no doubt. And that's a state misdemeanor, and under the law, a local prosecutor could try to indict on that offense, and a convicted trespasser could spend months in jail in D.C. But no legal scholars really think the Constitution supports that outcome. They argue the impeachment power requires high crimes for that very reason, and that a Congress would never find trespassing in D.C. to be a high crime. Then there's the second reason that it is hard to consider indicting a sitting president. You've probably heard a lot about this one, that the DOJ recommends against it.
A sitting president cannot be charged with a crime.
The prevailing rule is that a sitting president cannot be indicted.
The president cannot be indicted while a sitting president, because that would materially affect his ability to run the executive branch.
This view that you hear on the news has become so commonplace, it works as a punchline about why Trump acts like he's above the law.
So, Rudy, did you go on Fox News last night?
Like 20 times, yeah. Don't worry, I told them that you were openly colluding with Russia, but then I ended with, so what? Should all be fine. Yeah.
Thanks, Rudy.
I even confessed to some crimes you didn't do. And then I said, what are you going to do, arrest the president? I dare you.
I dare you. Goes well beyond skits. That's SNL, Rudy. But Trump's own real lawyers, like Real Rudy, they don't just say that he's innocent. They also make this more suspicious-sounding argument that even if he were guilty, the DOJ doesn't have the right to indict under the rules. And they note that indicting a president would unduly interfere with his constitutionally assigned duties, and that regardless of guilt, indictment alone would handicap a presidency, taking an overwhelming degree of preoccupation away from the president. Now, the DOJ's official guidance says that this immunity that we're discussing would not preclude prosecution once the president's term is over or he's otherwise removed. That is something that could scare any president who thinks or knows they committed a crime. Now, another Trump lawyer made headlines for reportedly telling Trump that lying to Mueller could land him in an orange jumpsuit. Now, we don't know whether Bob Mueller's report, when it comes out, will allege that Donald Trump lied in his written answers, for example, but that was Trump's own lawyer with the view that sooner or later you could go to jail for it. So there you have it, the two reasons a sitting president is unlikely to be indicted. You have impeachment and you have the DOJ recommending against it. But what if you had an emergency or a high crime or some reason the DOJ wanted to go forward on indicting a president? Two former special counsel have actually argued that indicting a president on the job is not always off the table. The Watergate prosecutor, Leon Jaworski, argued in a memo that there was nothing in the language of the Constitution barring the indictment of a sitting president. And then you get into modern times. Ken Starr was famously the Republican special counsel investigating Clinton. And when I asked him, he took the same view. You solicited an opinion for your investigation that argued a sitting president could be indicted. Did you agree with that view then?
Yes.
Do you agree with that view now?
Yes.
Those are major prosecutorial opinions. Now, we should note, neither of them actually did the thing they say they could have done legally. They say they had that power, or they think that power should exist, but they didn't indict a president, as you know. Now, then you have DOJ guidelines and a debate over what they mean. They're not law. And the man who actually wrote the ones for the special counsel said this.
The regulations say, Mueller, you're bound by DOJ policy, but you can seek exceptions. And so that's what I expect he would do.
And that is why all of the backstory and the legal history matters tonight. We don't know what Mueller's going to do, but if, according to the man who wrote his rules, he uncovered the kind of crime that was so significant that he needed or thought there was a public interest requirement to indict a sitting president, he could ask for an exception. But he would have to do that. He would have to do that request by submitting it to the current new Attorney General. And we know that judges are no stranger to keeping presidents in line. They ultimately ordered Nixon to turn over those very damning Watergate tapes. They said the president didn't have a kind of limitless executive privilege to withhold the information.
It is a unanimous decision, Doug, 8-0. Justice Rehnquist took no part in the decision ordering the President of the United States to turn over the tapes.
That was one of those moments in Watergate that changed history. We don't know yet whether anything in the Mueller report will push towards one of those moments now. The reason why we look at the law and the Constitution and mention tonight that there is a very high bar to ever go that far against a president is because it is the law and not our opinions about any given president that matters. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.